When the Taliban retook control of Afghanistan, it became an extremely hostile place for many, including British citizens. The UK government's advice is don't travel there. 3 men who did are now detained. Kevin Cornwell had been working in the country for charities as a medic until what has been described as a misunderstanding, a firearm seized from his hotel room by the Taliban.
We know the weapon was licensed. We're familiar with where the license was issued from and the context that it has. And so it's, I think, incumbent on the Taliban to consider the implications of what arbitrary detention could cause, given the dependency on the country for aid.
Mr. Cornwell's arrest was almost 3 months ago. He's been detained ever since, along with the manager of the hotel he was staying in. He is also British, but his identity hasn't been released. Both men are being helped by Scott Richards, whose company Presidium works in conflict zones. He says his associates in Afghanistan are trying to negotiate the release of the 2 detainees. Progress came with a phone call to their families, providing some much-needed reassurance.
The belief we had that these men were not being harmed, that they're not being poorly treated, is correct.
Scott Richards says he discovered the men's detention during his own research.
To me, that says if you guys hadn't come along and sought this information out and got actively involved in these negotiations, these men wouldn't have stood much of a chance just with the Foreign Office representing them.
That's probably a reasonable conclusion. I mean, it's self-evident by our participation.
The Home Secretary was clear the government is in talks to secure their release.
If there are risks to people's safety, if they're a British citizen abroad, then the UK government is going to do whatever it takes to ensure that they're safe, and the government is in negotiations.
Also detained is Miles Routledge, a British man who's holidayed in some of the world's most dangerous places, posting about it online.
There's risk and there's a reward, but for me there's only reward because it's so much fun. Let's do some shooting with the Taliban.
He was evacuated from Afghanistan when US forces pulled out of the country, but he returned. It's unclear why he was arrested.
Thank you, my friend.
There is hope that the men could be released to coincide with the end of Ramadan, but as their families wait desperately for news, their fate remains in the hands of the Taliban. Becky Cottrell, Sky News.